The cry that came from Halima's throat was not just a sound. It was a deep, ancient howl, the kind that came from the place where pain and fear lived together. It burst out of her mouth like a storm breaking through the sky. Her body arched. Off the thin mattress, arms trembling, fingers digging into the straw mat beneath her. The bed creaked beneath her weight, its old iron frame groaning just like she did. Her dress, soaked in sweat, clung to her small body like wet paper. Her feet were dusty, her heels cracked from years of barefoot walking. But now they were trembling, curled, kicking at nothing as the pain climbed higher and higher. She was not alone in the room, but in that moment, she might as well have been in a cave buried deep under the earth. The room around her was barely holding together. The mud walls were cracked in some places, and the tin roof above let in thin, slits of light that pierced through the dimness like knives. A weak ceiling fan spun in slow, useless circles. There was only one window, its curtain made of old Ankara fabric, faded and thin, flapping gently in the dry wind that smelled of dust, palm oil, and blood. The room was warm, not just from the heat of the sun, but from the weight of human suffering that lived there every day. Flies buzzed near a rusted sink in the corner, and the air was thick with a smell that was part antiseptic, part sweat, and part something darker, the scent of birth and the risk of death. Halima's breath came in short, hard gasps. Her eyes rolled back for a second, and then she came back to herself. She looked around the room desperately, but no comfort came. Her husband was not there. He had been earlier, standing awkwardly in the doorway, shifting from foot to foot, before his phone buzzed and he left to take a call. He had not returned. Halima knew where he had gone. He was not far. Just outside the ward, sitting under the neem tree with his mother. The old woman had not entered the room once, but Halima could feel her presence pressing down like a shadow waiting to fall. Her words earlier in the day still rang in Halima's ears like a threat. A child must be placed where there is a future, not where there is sorrow, she had said, her eyes sharp, voice cold, ignoring Halima's tears. The midwife, Mama Lami, was old but steady. Her hands moved with the confidence of a woman who had delivered hundreds of babies. She did not smile. She had seen too much to smile. Her face was lined with time, and her scarf was soaked with the day's sweat. She stood at the end of the bed, pushing down gently on Halima's swollen belly, whispering soft prayers in Hausa under her breath. Her voice was calm, but her hands were firm. She could feel the baby coming fast now. She knew Halima was young, too young, just 18. Her body was strong, but not yet fully ready. Still, the child was coming, and there would be no stopping it. The contractions came like waves crashing onto a broken shore, sudden, violent, and unstoppable. Halima screamed again, this time lower, her throat raw, her mouth open but dry. Her whole body tightened. A thin tear rolled down her temple and disappeared into her hair. She thought of her own mother, now dead 3 years. She wished she could hear her voice, feel her cool hand on her forehead, tell her it would be all right. But no one said that here. No one said, "It will be all right," because everyone in this village knew. Sometimes, it wasn't. A final cry broke from her chest, and then silence. For a second, everything stopped. The fan turned. The curtain flapped. A chicken clucked far outside. And then, the cry of a newborn. Loud, strong, alive. The baby's voice filled the room like sunlight after storm clouds. Halima gasped and tried to sit up. Her arms reached forward, shaking. She wanted to see, to hold, to breathe her child. And Mama Lami wrapped the newborn in a thin cotton cloth and wiped its face. She looked at Halima. "It's a boy," she said quietly. "A strong boy." Halima broke. Her chest rose and fell in sobs, but no sound came out. Only tears. She reached for the baby with hands that trembled like dry leaves in wind, but the midwife did not hand him over. She looked down at the baby, then at the door. Footsteps were coming. The door creaked open. Halima froze. It was the mother-in-law. A tall woman wrapped in layers of deep brown wrappers, her face lined with pride and hardness. Her eyes went straight to the baby. She walked in like a queen entering her throne room. Behind her came Halima's husband, Musa, his eyes on the floor, his face blank like a mask. He didn't speak. He didn't look at his wife. His silence was louder than any word. Mama Lami stepped back. Halima's heart beat faster. She didn't understand. The older woman stepped forward. "The child will go to Auntie Hadiza," she said flatly. Halima blinked. "What?" "She has waited for 10 years. She has no child. This one will be hers." "No," Halima whispered. Musa still said nothing. Halima turned to him, her voice rising, full of broken glass. "Musa, say something." He opened his mouth, then closed it again, and looked away. And just like that, the air in the room changed. The cry of the newborn softened, swallowed by the thick silence. Halima felt something sharp move through her chest, like her ribs were turning inward, pressing against her heart. Her arms dropped. Her eyes stared into nothing. Her baby, her blood, her fight, her fire, was being carried out the door, and she was still bleeding. The baby was gone. Halima lay on the bed, numb from the waist down, staring at the crack in the ceiling. Her hands lay limp at her sides. Blood still trickled slowly beneath her, warm and sticky. But she didn't call out. She didn't blink. Her body was in the room, but her spirit had stepped outside it, hovering somewhere in the corridor, maybe outside by the tree, maybe in the arms of the other woman now holding her son. A nurse came in quietly, a younger girl named Miriam. She was carrying a basin of warm water and a towel. She didn't speak. She had seen what happened. Everyone had. Word had already spread across the ward and down to the market square. They took Halima's baby. Miriam glanced at Halima and hesitated before gently lifting the wrapper covering her. Halima didn't move. Miriam's hands worked slowly, carefully, cleaning the blood, wiping the legs, changing the soiled sheet beneath her. But she said nothing. That was the unspoken rule in this part of the world. When something is too heavy for words, you keep silent. But inside Halima, the silence was not peace. It was war. She heard everything, the footsteps outside, the low murmurs of women talking in the corridor, the sharp voice of her mother-in-law giving instructions to someone, and even the soft coo of a baby not far away. Her baby. Her womb screamed louder than her mouth ever could. Her breasts ached with the absence of the child they had prepared to feed, and yet her mouth was sealed. She could not speak. Not from weakness, but from a grief so deep it had turned into a wall. She turned her head slightly and saw her husband, standing outside the ward, talking to someone. He looked tired. He rubbed his hands together and nodded without making eye contact with anyone. He was wearing the same shirt he had on during the delivery, but it was now untucked, and he looked smaller, older somehow. Halima stared at him. She tried to remember the boy she had married 2 years ago, the quiet young man who had come to her father's compound with his uncles, who barely looked up but smiled once when her cousin cracked a joke. He had never been cruel. He was not angry. He was simply absent. But now she saw something she hadn't noticed before. A small detail, but sharp like a thorn. As he spoke to his mother, he didn't just nod, he bowed his head. Slightly, yes, but deliberately, with respect, as if to say, "I agree, I obey." That crushed something in Halima, not because she didn't know what kind of world they lived in. She had grown up in it. She had watched her own aunt give up 2 sons to the senior wife of her husband. She had heard the stories, had seen it happen. But she never thought he would let it happen. Not after what they'd shared. Not after those nights they whispered in the dark, dreaming about a house of their own, about children with her smile and his eyes. And now, her firstborn, carried off like luggage. The hours passed slowly. Sunset came, washing the ward in golden light that made the dust in the air look like tiny stars. The other women in the ward watched her quietly from their beds. A few had come in earlier that day, just behind her, swollen with pregnancy, now, nursing their newborns beside them. No one laughed. No one dared show joy too loudly. The air was too heavy. One of them, an older woman named Safina, finally stood and walked to her. She placed a gentle hand on Halima's arm. Her voice was soft. "You want some water, my daughter?" Halima blinked, then nodded. A single tear rolled from the corner of her eye. Safina poured from a silver kettle into a cup, held it to Halima's lips. She sipped. It tasted like metal and dust, but she drank it slowly, as if each swallow reminded her she was still alive. Safina sighed. "I saw what happened. Your pain. It's not small." She sat on the edge of the bed. "But I need to tell you something. You must not die inside." Halima didn't answer. "Do you know what they'll say?" Safina continued, her voice turning hard now. "They will say you agreed, that you gave the child willingly, that you were too young, that you didn't fight." Halima's eyes widened. Safina nodded. "That's how this place works. If you stay quiet, they will write the story for you. You must not let that happen." "But what can I do?" Halima finally spoke. Her voice was hoarse, like it hadn't been used in days. "They are my husband's people, and he—" She swallowed. "He said nothing." Safina looked at her deeply. "Then you must speak. If not to them, then to yourself. If not now, then soon. Because silence is like a burial, and you are still alive." That night, Halima did not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling again, listening to the baby's cry from the next compound. Every time she heard it, something inside her chest cracked a little more, but also, something else grew. A small, flickering flame. It was not rage. Not yet. It was knowing. She now understood the truth in its full weight, that her silence had not protected her, that being obedient had not saved her child, that the people who should have stood for her had used culture like a knife and carved her open. And it was in that knowing that something inside Halima shifted. She had lost her child, but she would not lose herself. Not again. Not in silence. The next morning came with no ceremony, just the same dry wind, the same call to prayer drifting in from the mosque, and the same empty bed beside Halima. The ward was almost quiet now. 2 mothers had been discharged. One had been transferred to the city after a difficult birth. Halima remained, weak in body, but strong in silence. She had not cried again. Not loudly. Not in front of anyone. She sat up on her bed, eyes hollow, her belly wrapped tightly with cloth, her hands resting quietly on her lap. But inside, her thoughts burned like coals. She hadn't seen Musa since the morning after the birth. No visits, no explanations. Only a folded wrapper left on a chair beside her bed. His way of saying I'm still here, without the courage to actually be there. Halima stared at the wrapper now. It was hers. A faded blue and white one her mother had given her before she passed, her favorite. The one she wore when she first met Musa. And now, here it was, folded and waiting, like a ghost. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. It was the midwife, Mama Lami. She looked more tired than usual, her eyes heavy, her steps slower. She held a small tray with pap and ground nuts. She placed it on the stool beside Halima without speaking, then stood there, watching her. "You're not eating," she finally said. Halima shrugged. "I don't feel hunger." "You will," the midwife replied. "Pain eats first, then hunger comes back." There was silence between them for a while. The fan hummed overhead. Then Mama Lami cleared her throat and sat on the chair beside Halima's bed. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They came last night. Hadiza and the boy." Halima turned her head slowly. "They brought him to me. His breathing was strange. I checked. It's only cold. He will be fine." She paused, then added, "He looks just like you." Halima's lip quivered. Mama Lami leaned closer. "Do you know why your mother-in-law fights so hard for Hadiza?" Halima shook her head, because she chose her. "Hadiza was her pick for Musa. Your marriage was your father's doing, a trade for land they wanted to settle quietly. Musa was forced into it. They fought for months. Your husband? He never had a voice in this family." Halima's breath caught in her throat. "They thought you were a phase," the midwife continued. "A soft girl, with no roots in their politics. They thought you'd cry for a while, then accept, like others do. But Musa," she looked toward the window, "he is not cruel, just weak." The words hit hard, but not as hard as the realization that followed. Halima had spent months wondering why Musa never truly opened up to her. He was kind, yes, gentle, but always distant, as if something else owned his attention. She thought it was money, or fear of responsibility. But it wasn't. It was obedience. He had grown up learning to disappear, to say yes even when his heart said no, to bow his head and walk the path his family carved out for him. And now she saw it. He hadn't just given her baby away. He had given himself away a long time ago. Mama Lami touched her arm gently. "I tell you this not to excuse him, but to prepare you. He is broken, and broken men break others if you let them." That night, Halima made a decision. She asked for her phone. The small Nokia one she had hidden in her bag before coming to the clinic. Its battery was nearly dead, but still held enough charge for one call. She dialed her uncle in Kaduna, her mother's younger brother, a civil servant with a reputation for speaking plainly and never backing down from injustice. He had always liked Halima, had always called her my strong girl. When he answered, his voice cracked with worry. "I heard something bad," he said. "Is it true?" Halima said only one sentence. "They took my child and gave him away. And my husband agreed." The silence on the other end was deep. Then, "Where are you now?" She told him. "I'm coming tomorrow. Stay strong. Don't let them lie." The line cut. And that night, Halima slept. Not soundly, but with purpose. The next morning, the village saw something it had never seen before. A small silver car rolled up to the clinic gates, unusual enough in a place where motorcycles and donkey carts were the main transport. From it stepped a man in dark trousers and a crisp white caftan. He walked with calm anger, the kind of rage that didn't raise its voice but broke doors when necessary. Halima's uncle greeted the nurses, then went straight to the family compound. He demanded to see the baby. Demanded to see Musa. The argument that followed echoed through the neighborhood. It was the kind of clash that drew people to windows, made children quiet, and stopped the market noise for a while. Inside the house, Musa stood like a trapped animal, his mother argued. Hadiza wept, but Halima's uncle did not flinch. He spoke plainly. "That child belongs to Halima. I will take this to the emir's court if I must, or the media. Do you want your name on the radio?" Musa trembled. He looked around, at his mother, at Hadiza, at the baby, then at the floor. And then, for the first time in his adult life, he said the word his mother feared most? No. The room fell silent. He looked up, eyes full of tears. This is wrong. I knew it was wrong. I just didn't know how to stop it. His mother slapped him. He didn't move. But he repeated, softer this time. No. That afternoon, the baby was brought back to the clinic, wrapped in the same blue cloth Halima had worn 2 days ago. When she saw him again, her body gave way, not with weakness, but with release. She held him against her chest, her heartbeat slow and steady, her tears falling silently into his hair. The pain didn't vanish. The betrayal didn't disappear. But for the first time, Halima felt seen. And that changed everything. The morning air was still, thick with the smell of earth and damp straw. The sun had not yet risen high, and long shadows lay across the courtyard outside the clinic. Halima sat beneath the neem tree, her baby asleep in her arms. His tiny chest moved up and down slowly, peacefully, unaware of the storm that had surrounded his birth. His hand rested near her collarbone, curled like a small fist, a quiet declaration of life. She hadn't spoken much since the baby was returned. Not out of shock now, but choice, the kind of silence that speaks louder than screams. Everyone in the village knew the story by now. It had spread faster than bushfire. Some whispered, others stared. A few women even avoided her eyes, not out of shame, but fear. Halima had become something dangerous, not because she shouted, but because she didn't. She had broken the order, and still stood. Inside the family compound, chaos brewed quietly. Halima had not returned there since the day she gave birth. The clinic staff had offered her a small side room to rest while she healed. Her uncle had insisted on paying for it, and also sent a lawyer's letter to Musa's family, the kind of letter that made people nervous, especially when it came from Kaduna and carried words like custody and legal guardianship. Musa hadn't visited since the day he said no. Halima wasn't surprised. She knew what that cost him. To look his mother in the face and deny her. To speak up after years of swallowing his voice. She did not hate him. But she no longer loved him either. Not in the way she once did. What he did, or didn't do, had cut a line too deep. Forgiveness might come one day, but not return. A soft knock on the door behind her pulled her from thought. It was Miriam, the young nurse. She carried a flask of porridge and a note folded small. Halima took it, opening it slowly. The handwriting was Musa's. I don't know how to ask for forgiveness, but I know I must. I let fear speak for me. I'm sorry I didn't fight when you needed me most. If you choose never to come back, I will understand. If you ever need anything, I will answer. This time, I will answer. She folded the paper quietly and tucked it beneath her wrapper. She didn't cry. She looked down at her son. His eyes were just starting to open, unfocused, fluttering, searching for something that didn't yet have a name. She touched his cheek gently. He turned toward her, rooted in instinct. That afternoon, she stood for the first time and walked. Beyond the clinic gate, not toward the compound, not toward Musa, but toward the edge of the village, where a rusted bus waited beneath the mango tree. It was the same one that came every week to carry people to the city. She held her baby tighter. Her small bag hung from one shoulder. A new wrapper was tied around her waist, bold colors of green and orange, strong colors, loud colors. She didn't look back. The women at the bus stop watched her silently. One or two nodded, respectfully. One even reached into her pocket and handed Halima a small sachet of powdered milk, without saying a word. A gesture, small but weighty. A message, passed between women, older than language. As the bus rumbled to life, Halima's thoughts drifted to her mother again. She imagined her watching from the clouds, arms crossed, lips pressed into a proud smile. Halima had not saved her marriage, had not saved the family name, but she had saved herself and her son, and that was enough. The bus turned onto the red road and began to climb the hill. The village slowly disappeared behind them. Halima closed her eyes and pressed her cheek to her child's forehead. The pain was still there. It would stay, like a scar. But scars were proof that healing had begun. Weeks later, a new story began to circulate in the village. A quiet one, barely whispered, that Halima was staying with relatives in the city, that she was taking classes in women's health and legal rights, that she planned to return one day, not as someone's wife, but as someone's voice. They didn't know when, they didn't know how, but they knew. And that alone made the right people uncomfortable. Some mocked her, others dismissed her. But the younger girls in the village listened closely, and that was enough. In a world where injustice often wears the face of tradition and silence is passed down like inheritance, Halima had broken the rhythm. She didn't need to burn down the house. She simply walked out of it, with her child, with her truth, with her silence, loud, fierce, unforgettable.